Commander Jake Morrison had seen worse interrogation chambers, but not by much. The sterile white walls of the Zephyrian detention facility seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy that made his teeth ache. He'd been strapped to this biometal chair for what felt like hours, though his chronometer had been confiscated along with the rest of his gear when the bird-like aliens had captured his reconnaissance team. The door hissed open with a sound like escaping steam, and Jake looked up to see his captor approaching. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent blue-green feathers covering most of its humanoid body. Its head was distinctly avian, with a sharp black beak and large, intelligent golden eyes that seemed to pierce straight through him. What Jake found most unsettling, however, were the creature's hands, long, delicate fingers ending in what looked like crystalline growths instead of nails. Human. The alien spoke through a translation device clipped to its chest, its voice carrying an odd harmonic quality. I am Interrogator Keth'var of the Zephyrian Intelligence Corps. Your species has trespassed in our territory without authorization. We require information about your intentions and capabilities. Jake had been through SEER training. He knew the drill. Commander Jake Morrison, United Earth Navy, serial number 7749-218. That's all I'm authorized to tell you. Keth'var clicked his beak in what might have been amusement. Your primitive vocal communication is inefficient. We shall extract the information we require through more direct means. The alien moved closer, raising one of his crystalline-tipped hands. I am what you might call a mind reader, though the term is crude. I will simply touch you, and your thoughts will become mine. The alien's confidence was absolute. Jake had read the intelligence reports on various alien species encountered by human explorers, but the Zephyrians were new. If this creature really could read minds, then the locations of human colonies, military installations, and fleet movements would all be compromised. He had to resist, somehow. I've touched the minds of 1,000 species across the galaxy, Keth'var continued, his golden eyes gleaming. Each consciousness is like a clear pool of water, easily read, easily understood. Your human mind will be no different. Jake tensed as the alien's hand drew closer to his forehead. The crystalline growths seemed to glow with a faint inner light, and he could feel a strange tingling in the air around them. Let's get this over with, Jake muttered. Keth'var's fingers made contact with Jake's skin. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien's eyes widened in what Jake could only describe as pure terror. Keth'var began to tremble, his beak opening and closing soundlessly. The glow from his crystalline fingertips intensified dramatically. Suddenly, Keth'var let out a piercing shriek that seemed to go on forever, a sound of such absolute horror and agony that it made Jake's blood run cold. The alien staggered backward, clutching his head with both hands, his entire body convulsing. Then, with a crash that shook the interrogation table, Keth'var collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Jake stared at the motionless form of his interrogator, completely bewildered. Well, he said to the empty room, that's new. Dr. Veltar, the Zephyrian medical officer, had seen many things in his long career, but nothing quite like the condition of interrogator Keth'var. The usually composed and methodical mind reader lay on the medical bay's biobed, his feathers dulled to an unhealthy gray, his body occasionally twitching as if experiencing phantom pain. Report, demanded General Zephyr as he entered the medical bay, his own crimson feathers marking his high rank among their species. It's unprecedented, General, Dr. Veltar replied, his long fingers dancing over the holographic displays showing Keth'var's vital signs. When interrogator Keth'var attempted to interface with the human's mind, something went catastrophically wrong. His neural pathways show signs of trauma, severe overload. Overload? From a single human mind. The general's beak clicked in disbelief. Keth'var has successfully interfaced with the consciousness of every known sapient species. He once read the mind of a crystalline hive queen without difficulty. How could one primitive human cause this? Before Dr. Veltar could respond, Keth'var's eyes snapped open, wide with remembered terror. He began speaking rapidly in his native tongue, too fast for the translation device to keep up. His words tumbled over each other in a panic stream. Keth'var, the general said firmly, placing a calming hand on the interrogator's shoulder. Speak slowly. What happened when you touched the human? The mind reader's breathing gradually slowed, but his eyes remained haunted. General, what I experienced. He paused, seeming to gather himself. Every species I have ever touched thinks in organized patterns. Their consciousness flows like a river, directed, purposeful, contained. Even the most chaotic minds have structure. And the human? Keth'var shuddered. The human mind is not a river, General. It's an ocean in a storm. No, worse, it's a storm made of oceans. Dr. Veltar leaned forward, fascinated despite the disturbing nature of the report. Explain. Imagine, if you can, Keth'var continued, his voice growing steadier but no less unsettled. A consciousness that runs on multiple levels simultaneously. Surface thoughts, yes, but beneath them, layers upon layers of parallel processing. The human wasn't just thinking about his resistance to interrogation. He was simultaneously running battle scenarios, composing what appeared to be a song, solving a mathematical equation, remembering the taste of something called pizza, experiencing attraction to a female of his species, wondering about the quantum mechanics of our faster-than-light travel, and feeling homesick for something he called the smell of rain on hot asphalt. The general's feathers ruffled with confusion. That's impossible. No mind can maintain that many concurrent thought processes. There's more, Keth'var whispered. Underneath all of that conscious activity was something else. Something vast and deep and violent. It was as if his mind contained an entire library of warfare, strategy, and survival techniques, all ready to be accessed instantly. But worse than that was the emotional component. Emotional component? Humans don't just think, General. They feel with an intensity that defies comprehension. Every single thought was accompanied by emotional resonance. The mathematical equation made him feel satisfied. The memory of rain made him feel nostalgic. His homesickness carried with it love, loss, determination, and a dozen other emotions I don't have words for. Dr. Veltar made notes on his tablet. Perhaps their neural structure is simply more complex than we assumed. Keth'var shook his head violently. You don't understand. I tried to go deeper to find the core of his consciousness, the central governing process that all sapient species possess. Do you know what I found? Both the doctor and general remained silent, waiting. Chaos, Keth'var breathed. Beautiful, terrible, magnificent chaos. His mind doesn't have a single controlling consciousness. It has thousands of voices, all arguing, all contributing, all somehow working together without any central authority. It was like trying to read the mind of an entire civilization contained within a single skull. The general was quiet for a long moment. And this caused your collapse? When I tried to interface fully with his consciousness, all of those voices, all of that chaotic beauty, came flooding into my mind at once. My neural pathways couldn't handle it. It was like trying to drink from a waterfall. Keth'var sat up slowly, his movements shaky. General, if this human is representative of his species, what? We may have made contact with something far more dangerous than we imagined. The emergency session of the Zephyrian High Council convened in the Crystal Spire at the heart of their capital city. Representatives from across their galactic territories had arrived via quantum communication, their holographic forms shimmering around the circular chamber. At the center sat Elder Sefthal, ancient even by Zephyrian standards. Her silver feathers dulled with age, but her golden eyes still sharp with intelligence. General Zephyr stood at the presentation podium, his report displayed in glowing symbols above him. Honored elders, what we have discovered about human consciousness challenges everything we thought we knew about sapient evolution. Preposterous, scoffed Commander Wexhigh from the Outer Rim territories. You're suggesting that a single species could possess cognitive abilities superior to our own? We who have mapped the minds of 1,000 worlds. Not superior, the general clarified. Different. alien in ways that our most xenobiological specialists never anticipated. Elder Sefthul raised one delicate hand for silence. Present your evidence. General Zephyr activated a new display showing brain scans from various species. These are neural patterns from every sapient race in our database. Note the elegant structure, the clear hierarchical organization, the logical flow of information processing. The images showed brains with distinct regions, organized pathways, and orderly patterns of activity. Now, he continued, and a new image appeared. This is a scan of the human brain during normal conscious activity. The assembled counselors gasped. Where other species showed ordered patterns, the human brain displayed what looked like controlled chaos. Neural activity blazed across multiple regions simultaneously, connections firing in seemingly random patterns that somehow maintained coherence. "By the great sky," whispered Counselor Neth Aim from the Scientific Directorate. "It looks like a neural storm." "That's not the most disturbing part," General Zephyr continued. He activated another display. "Dr. Veltar has analyzed the data from interrogator Keth'var's encounter. What we learned is that humans don't just think differently. They think multiply." "Explain," Elder Sefthul commanded. "Every other sapient species we've encountered possesses what we term unified consciousness, a single stream of thought, controlled by one central processing center. Humans appear to have what can only be described as distributed consciousness. They can literally think about multiple complex topics simultaneously without any degradation in cognitive performance." The holographic form of Admiral Keth'var from the border fleet leaned forward. "Are you suggesting they possess hive-mind capabilities like the crystalline collectives?" "No, Admiral. The crystallines share consciousness across multiple bodies. Humans somehow maintain multiple conscious processes within a single mind. And each of these processes appears to be capable of independent problem-solving, emotional response, and memory access." Counselor Nethaim's feathers ruffled with scientific excitement. The evolutionary advantages would be enormous. They could process tactical information while simultaneously maintaining social awareness, solve complex problems while monitoring their environment, and conduct warfare on multiple cognitive levels at once, interrupted Commander Wexhigh grimly. "If they can think about several complex subjects simultaneously, imagine their capabilities in battle. Strategy, tactics, logistics, enemy psychology, all being processed in parallel." Elder Sefthul was silent for a long moment, her ancient eyes studying the neural displays. Finally, she spoke. "There is another concern. If their minds are truly as chaotic, as interrogator Keth'var described, then our standard diplomatic and intelligence protocols will be useless." "How so, Elder?" asked the general. "For 2 millennia, our expansion across the galaxy has been predicated on our ability to understand other species through mental interface. We negotiate by understanding thought patterns, we gather intelligence through direct neural contact, we assess threats by reading the minds of our enemies. If humans are truly unreadable, the implications settled over the Council like a shadow. Their entire civilization was built around the ability to understand and predict the behavior of other species through mental interface. A species whose minds couldn't be read would be incomprehensible, unpredictable, and ultimately uncontrollable," finished Admiral Keth'var. "General," Elder Sefthul said, "what is the status of the human prisoner?" "Still in containment, Elder. We've made no further attempts at mental interface after Keth'var's experience." "And his ship? His crew?" "We destroyed his vessel after capture. 2 other humans died in the initial engagement. Commander Morrison appears to be the sole survivor." Elder Sefthul was quiet again, processing. Around the chamber, the other counselors waited. Finally, she announced her decision. "We will conduct a full study of this human's cognitive abilities. Assemble a team of our best neurobiologists, consciousness researchers, and military analysts. We need to understand what we're dealing with before more humans arrive in our space." "And if they prove to be a threat?" asked Commander Wexhigh. The Elder's golden eyes hardened. "Then we will act accordingly. But first we must know our enemy. Or," she paused, considering, determine if they might instead become the most dangerous ally we've ever encountered. General Zephyr bowed his head. It will be done, Elder. As the council session ended and the holographic forms flickered out, Elder Sefthul remained alone in the crystal chamber, staring at the chaotic neural patterns of the human brain. In her centuries of life, she had never encountered a puzzle quite like this. She had the unsettling feeling that the future of the Zephyrian Empire might depend on solving it. Dr. Veltar had assembled the most advanced cognitive research team in Zephyrian space, and they had spent 3 days preparing for their attempt to safely study the human's consciousness. The research facility's main laboratory had been converted into what could only be described as a fortress of scientific instruments, with neural dampeners, consciousness buffers, and emergency medical equipment positioned around a specialized interface chair. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the center of it all, still restrained but now connected to dozens of monitoring devices. He'd been briefed on what they planned to do, and to everyone's surprise, he had agreed to cooperate. You understand, Dr. Veltar explained through his translator. We will be attempting to interface with your consciousness in a controlled manner. The safety protocols should prevent what happened to interrogator Keth'var. Jake looked around at the assembled team of scientists and military observers. Doc, I've got to ask, why are you so interested in how human minds work? I mean, we can't be that different from other species you've met. Dr. Veltar exchanged glances with his colleagues. Commander Morrison, in our centuries of spacefaring, we have encountered 1,247 distinct sapient species. Every single one of them possessed what we term linear consciousness, organized, hierarchical thought processes that follow predictable patterns. And humans don't? Your mind, interjected research specialist Jethris, appears to function in ways that our science cannot adequately explain. When interrogator Keth'var made contact with your consciousness, he described experiencing something unprecedented in our records. Jake shrugged as much as his restraints allowed. Well, I can't say I know how other species think, but human consciousness has always seemed pretty normal to us. We just think about multiple things at once. Doesn't everyone? The assembled Zephyrians looked at each other with something approaching alarm. Commander, Dr. Veltar said carefully, when you say multiple things at once, could you be more specific? Jake considered the question. Right now? Well, I'm listening to you and thinking about what you're asking, but I'm also trying to figure out the best way to escape from this chair, wondering if my crew made it back to human space, analyzing the structural weaknesses I can see in this room's architecture, composing a mental letter to my sister back on Earth, and trying to remember the lyrics to an old song my dad used to sing. The room fell completely silent. All simultaneously? Whispered research specialist Jethris. Of course, simultaneously. Plus, I'm monitoring all of your body language for signs of deception or aggression, maintaining awareness of the environmental sounds that might indicate rescue or additional threats, and Jake paused, noticing their expressions. This really isn't normal for other species, is it? Dr. Veltar activated his recording devices. Commander, would you be willing to undergo a consciousness interface while actively demonstrating these parallel thinking processes? Sure. Document. Just try not to end up like your friend Keth'var. The research team took their positions. Dr. Veltar, wearing the most advanced neural protection equipment they possessed, slowly approached Jake's chair. I want you to actively think about as many different subjects as you can manage. The more complex, the better. No problem. Dr. Veltar placed his crystalline-tipped fingers against Jake's forehead, and immediately the monitoring equipment began displaying readings that made no sense. Instead of the orderly neural patterns they expected, the displays showed what looked like a symphony of chaos, dozens of distinct thought processes operating in perfect harmony despite their apparent randomness. Report, called out General Zephyr from the observation deck. Dr. Veltar's voice was filled with wonder. I can perceive his thoughts, but it's like listening to an entire orchestra playing different songs simultaneously, yet somehow it all creates beautiful music. He's currently solving a complex mathematical theorem while also planning an escape route, composing poetry, analyzing our defensive capabilities, and he paused. his feathers ruffling with surprise. Feeling sympathy for me because he's concerned that interfacing with his mind might cause me psychological trauma. Jake spoke up from the chair. Sorry, document. Can't help being worried about you. You seem like a decent guy, and I don't want to break your brain. The kindness in the human's voice, even while imprisoned and being experimented upon, sent a shiver through the assembled researchers. There's more, Dr. Veltar continued. Beneath his active conscious thoughts, I can sense vast networks of processing power in what he might call his subconscious. His mind is constantly running background processes, threat assessment, pattern recognition, emotional processing, memory consolidation. It never stops. Research specialist Jethris checked her instruments. Doctor, the neural activity readings suggest his brain is operating at approximately 400% of what we would consider normal cognitive capacity, yet he shows no signs of mental fatigue or strain. Because this is normal for him, Dr. Veltar realized. His species has evolved to maintain this level of mental activity as their baseline consciousness. Jake nodded as much as he could while connected to the interface. Humans have always been pretty good at multitasking. We had to be back when we were developing on Earth. Survival required us to be aware of multiple threats and opportunities simultaneously. Dr. Veltar carefully withdrew from the mental interface, his hands shaking slightly but his eyes bright with scientific excitement. Commander Morrison, I believe I understand now why humans have been so successful as a species, despite your relatively recent entry into space exploration. Oh, your minds are essentially biological supercomputers, capable of processing information at levels that far exceed our own capabilities. But more than that, you can think creatively and analytically at the same time. You can maintain emotional awareness while solving technical problems. You can plan for the future while learning from the past while acting in the present. General Zephyrn's voice came over the intercom. Doctor, what are the implications for our military assessment? Dr. Veltar looked up at the observation deck, his expression grave. General, if Commander Morrison is representative of human cognitive abilities, then we are dealing with a species that is essentially designed for warfare. Not because they're aggressive, though they certainly can be, but because their minds are perfectly suited for the kind of complex, multi-layered thinking that successful military strategy requires. Jake cleared his throat. If I may, General, humans aren't inherently warlike, but we are survivors, and we've learned that sometimes survival requires fighting smarter, not just harder. The research team began packing up their equipment, but Dr. Veltar remained near Jake's chair. Commander, he said quietly, I have one more question. When you're thinking about all these different subjects at once, doesn't it become overwhelming? Jake smiled. Doc, the chaos isn't a bug in human consciousness. It's a feature. We don't just think in spite of the chaos. We think because of it. All those different thoughts and ideas and emotions bouncing around in our heads, they combine in unexpected ways. They create new solutions, new possibilities, new ways of seeing the world. And that's how humans innovate. Exactly. Our minds are messy, chaotic, and unpredictable. And that's exactly why we've been so successful as a species. Dr. Veltar nodded slowly, finally understanding. The humans weren't just different. They represented an entirely new evolutionary approach to consciousness itself. The question now was, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Elder Sefthal stood in her private chambers at the top of the crystal spire, watching the 3 moons of Zephyr Prime rise over the city. The research reports from Dr. Veltar's team lay spread across her desk, each page more disturbing than the last. In all her centuries of life, she had never faced a decision quite like this one. A soft chime announced the arrival of her advisors. General Zephyrn entered first, followed by Dr. Veltar, Admiral Kreshval via hologram, and Intelligence Director Keth'var. Each carried the weight of the knowledge they had gained about human consciousness. Honored Elder, General Zephyrn began, we have completed our assessment of the human threat level. Proceed. Commander Morrison's cognitive abilities are not anomalous for his species. Our analysis suggests that all humans possess this form of distributed consciousness. They are, in effect, an entire species of natural-born strategists and innovators. Elder Sefthul nodded grimly. And the military implications? Admiral Kreshval's holographic form leaned forward. Catastrophic if they prove hostile. A human military commander could simultaneously coordinate multiple battle theaters, develop new tactics in real time, and adapt to changing circumstances with unprecedented speed. Their ability to think on multiple levels would make them nearly impossible to outmaneuver. However, Dr. Veltar interjected, our psychological profile suggests that humans are not inherently aggressive. Commander Morrison demonstrated remarkable emotional control and even concern for our well-being during the experiments. Intelligence Director Keth'var activated a holographic display showing stellar charts. Our deep space reconnaissance has detected approximately 24 human colonies within 100 light-years of our borders. If their expansion continues at current rates, direct contact within the next decade is inevitable. Elder Sefthul studied the display. What of their technology? Crude but effective, replied General Zephyr. Their faster-than-light travel is less efficient than ours, but their weapon systems show innovative design principles. More concerning is their apparent ability to rapidly develop new technologies. Commander Morrison's ship, despite being destroyed, showed technological advances that our intelligence suggested they shouldn't have possessed for another 50 years. They accelerate, Dr. Veltar added. Their distributed consciousness doesn't just make them better at thinking, it makes them better at learning. They can process new information, integrate it with existing knowledge, and develop practical applications faster than any species on record. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. The Zephyrian Empire had dominated their region of the galaxy for millennia through superior technology and their ability to understand and predict other species. Now they faced a race that could potentially match their technology within decades and whose minds were fundamentally unreadable. Elder, Admiral Kreshval said quietly, we have 3 options. First, we attempt to contain human expansion through military force while their technology is still inferior to ours. Second, we withdraw from this region of space and cede it to human expansion. Third, we attempt to establish peaceful relations and hope that their distributed consciousness can be turned to mutual benefit rather than conflict. Elder Sefthul walked to her window, gazing out at the city below. Director Keth'var, what does your analysis suggest about human intentions? Based on Commander Morrison's psychological profile and what we've learned about human colony expansion, they appear to be explorers and settlers rather than conquerors. They expand to find new homes and resources, not to subjugate other species. However, their history shows they can be formidable opponents when threatened. In other words, they're dangerous if provoked, but not necessarily hostile by nature. Correct, Elder? Elder Sefthul was quiet for a long moment, processing the decision that would shape the future of her civilization. Finally, she turned back to her advisors. General, I want you to release Commander Morrison. The general's feathers ruffled in surprise. Elder, furthermore, you will provide him with a new ship, supplies, and safe passage back to human space. Elder, with respect, that would reveal our location and capabilities to a potential enemy. No, General. It will reveal our intentions to a potential ally. She activated the room's main display, showing the research data on human consciousness. Look at these readings again. Yes, humans could be formidable enemies, but imagine what they could accomplish as allies. Their innovative thinking combined with our advanced technology, their adaptive strategies merged with our established resources. Dr. Veltar's eyes widened with understanding. A symbiotic relationship. Their chaos balanced by our order. Precisely. But more than that, if humans continue to expand across the galaxy with or without our involvement, we face a choice. We can be the species that welcomed them to the galactic community, or we can be the species that tried to stop them. Admiral Kreshval's hologram flickered with concern. Elder, you're gambling the future of our empire on the hope that humans will prove benevolent. No, Admiral. I'm gambling on the belief that any species capable of the kind of complex, empathetic thinking we've observed in Commander Morrison is more likely to become a valuable ally than a destructive enemy. She paused, then added, "Besides, our alternative options assume we could actually stop human expansion if we tried. Given what we've learned about their adaptive capabilities, I'm no longer certain that's possible." The truth of that statement hung heavy in the air. "General," Elder Sefthal continued, "when you release Commander Morrison, you will also provide him with a message for his government. We wish to establish formal diplomatic relations between our species. And if they refuse, if they prove hostile after all," Elder Sefthal smiled, an expression that was somehow both wise and sad. "Then, my dear General, we will have the unique distinction of being the first species in the galaxy to face an enemy whose minds we cannot read." She looked once more at the data on human consciousness, that beautiful, chaotic symphony of parallel thoughts and unlimited potential. "But somehow," she continued, "I don't think that will be necessary. Any species capable of such magnificent mental chaos is also capable of magnificent creation. We would be fools not to see what we might accomplish together." 3 months later, Commander Jake Morrison sat in the conference room aboard the UES Endeavour, humanity's first official diplomatic vessel, as it approached Zephyr Prime. Across from him, Ambassador Sarah Chun reviewed the preliminary treaty documents that would establish the Human-Zephyrian alliance. "Jake," she said, looking up from her tablet, "I have to ask, when that alien mind reader touched you and passed out, did you have any idea this would be the result?" Jake grinned. "Sarah, I was just trying not to think about classified military information. I had no idea that normal human multitasking would break their entire understanding of consciousness." Ambassador Chun shook her head in amazement. "Well, it certainly made an impression. According to Elder Sefthal's communications, the Zephyrians are fascinated by human cognitive abilities. They're hoping our chaotic creativity can help solve some long-standing technological challenges they've been facing. And in return, we get access to FTL technology that would have taken us centuries to develop on our own. Plus an introduction to the wider galactic community," Ambassador Chen added. "Jake, I think this might be the beginning of something remarkable." As their ship approached the crystal spires of the Zephyrian capital, Jake Morrison couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best diplomacy was just being yourself, even if being yourself happened to involve the kind of mental chaos that could terrify alien mind readers. In the distance, the elegant ships of the Zephyrian fleet rose to escort them in, and Jake found himself thinking simultaneously about the historic significance of the moment, the technical specifications of the alien vessels, the lunch he was planning to have later, and a joke his sister would appreciate. It was, he reflected, a perfectly normal human thought process. And apparently that made all the difference.